Hi, Kunal.
Hey, Mona, how are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Are we ready to rock and roll? Good morning.
Good morning. Let's go.
Awesome. So, Kunal Shah needs no introduction, but for the very few, the rare few that do not, the very few, the rare few that do not know him, he's the founder at CRED. Before that, he was the founder at Recharge. He's an extremely active angel investor. Most of all, someone who understands user behavior really well. Thinks about uh, good behavior. How can you incentivize that across many different areas of life? So I wanted to take this opportunity to get to chat with you about mostly about your student life and how those experiences have shaped you to where you are today, and what can other students that are currently at that stage of their life learn from you, and maybe hopefully skip a few mistakes you made and capitalize on a few things that went well for you. So that is the objective of this conversation. I wanted to start with actually, you made a lot of unconventional choices. You did your undergrad in arts and philosophy. Then you did an MBA from NMIMS, and then you kind of dropped out of there. Um, you know, like I don't know, but living in an Indian family, I can imagine dropping out. Like, how did your parents react to it? How did your friends react to it? And what was your thought process there? Like, so many times we make choices just to make others happy. How did you kind of navigate that path?
Um, I've never really spoken about my student life. This is an unusual conversation, so it'll be fun. Uh,
Yeah.
First of all, I want to tell people that dropping out uh, it does not make you successful. This is I compare this to this view that a lot of people who are high IQ do not believe in God.
Hmm.
But not believing in God will not make you high IQ. Just
Correct.
the way a lot of successful people may be dropping out, but dropping out will not make you successful. So I think it's important that we understand and appreciate it. I do not like to make it glorious to drop out because most of us uh, have not understood the basics of life to do that. That's first. In terms of choices. Family went through financial crisis when I was in 10th grade, and I had to start doing a full-time job since then. And I think the moment you get financial independence and you take care of the family in some manner, uh, family members tend to have lesser opinions on what you do and how you do things. So a lot of people keep asking me, even after like multiple years out of college and all of that, that oh shit, or my parents are not allowing me to start up, or my parents are not allowing me to join a startup. All of these are likely to be true statements if you do not have financial independence or ability to demonstrate financial independence, right? All dependencies are prisons, and all prisons are dependencies. And the moment you have that, you can't make these unconventional choices. My choice in philosophy was not so much out of interest, but more out of wanted a degree, and the only course that was available to do while I could do a full-time job was philosophy, because philosophy used to be 7 to 9 a.m. in college. And I'm like, okay, this much I can do, and I can then go to a full-time job. It just turned out to be an extraordinarily powerful thing in my building, because philosophy, uh, most people think of philosophy as some gyan, but philosophy stands for philo plus sophy, which is love for knowledge. And if you go back to every subject that we study is rooted in philosophy. In fact, if you achieve excellence
Excuse
in
me, sir.
any subject,
Sorry to interrupt you, but actually your voice is too loud, so that it. Can you place a bit
okay, sure,
distant
that's
mic?
fine. That's fine.
Yeah, because
Uh,
your voice
in,
coming.
in terms of the idea of philosophy was that uh, everything that we learn is actually born out of philosophy. Science is born out of philosophy, math, physics. Every single thing that we consider to be superior subjects to philosophy are actually born out of philosophy. In fact, when you achieve excellence in any field whatsoever, what you get is PhD, which is doctorate of philosophy, right? And I think that gave me interesting perspective for a young person to be thrown into Indian philosophy, Western philosophy was uh, quite hard because so far you lived this perfectly delusional life that most Indians live, and then you go to find out that hey, truth is nowhere what you thought it to be, and to me, I often tell people that product management is also a philosophical pursuit because you are constantly trying to seek truth, find truth, and make something out of it. Right? It's an applied philosophy, if I have to say anything. And a lot of people say psychology and human behavior, but everything is rooted in philosophy in some ways, where you are deeply interested in seeking truth.
But how did you
Whatever
get to that? How did you? I'm sure you realized this while you were already doing philosophy, but before that, like, how did you make the choice of picking that?
I think I was listening to a few philosophy guys discuss a topic in canteen, who are much more senior to me, and I was like, this looks like an interest area to me because I used to be a curious soul. I never knew something like philosophy existed. I think one more curse that I had is that I was terrible at memorizing things. I am, which made me not good in the Indian curriculum or Indian education system. I understood things, but I could never memorize pages and pages of things. I was a natural abstractor of insights. I from childhood I used to like summarize things, uh, and not want the long form of things. And that also explains how I constantly write on social media in abstraction forms because I want to store knowledge in succinct forms, versus kind of having long explanation which mean nothing much but except more words being added. And therefore I was not very good at studies according to my marks. So I thought वैसे भी कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, let me just be randomly curious. So I think my random curiosity succeeded to continue to be there in my life because I never scored good marks. I was always in the top 10 ranks. I never broke into the top 3 or top 4 of anything because it required you to memorize a lot of things, and I would any day not do that versus anything else. I still remember I would not completely sit for the 3 hour exam. I would go to sleep or walk away from the classroom because I just couldn't sit for 3 hours. So, but I think just the way I was built, that I was interested in knowing things. Sometimes I feel like that character in Three Idiots who just wanted to be in every classroom and learn everything, but not really give exams to prove that I know everything.
Got it. So, through your student life, is there, if you had to kind of relive some of those moments, what are some things that kind of just like very clearly stand out for you, which were like pivotal moments, and what are some which you would, if you had to relive them, you would change or do
That's a good question. I think one specific moment I was just discussing with some friends recently was when I was in first grade or second grade. One of my class teacher gave me a book as a gift only because that character in that book looked like me as a kid. And that book was Curious Kid. So what happened is that early on, an identity was taken by me. It just turned out to be a positive identity of being a curious kid, right? And I think that one thing that when we give early identities to kids, so I've run experiments. I don't have kids. I run experiment with other kids. You start telling them that hey, you are pretty, then they will keep assuming that that's the metric that you need to solve for in life. But the moment you tell them that hey, you love books, like you are a book lover, and they live to that identity for a long period of time, and kind of live to that potential. So I think applying early identities, accidentally in my case, but consciously in other people's case, could be a interesting pivotal moment in life. Other than that was uh, I used to score almost good marks or full marks in essays, which was unusual for most kids to do because you have to imagine a scenario, right? Like I would always score full marks on autobiography, which I realized that was pivotal to me to empathize. Autobiography of a coin, autobiography of a table made you extraordinary at empathy, right? And I think that kind of stuff. I remember I won some inter-school essay competition um, where I think it was third or fourth grade, I had to write an essay on if I were a millionaire. Uh, and everybody used to write about how they will do philanthropy and all of that. And I took the contrarian approach of writing that if I was a millionaire, I would do the worst possible things. I took the anti popular narrative, and which got me the first prize because it was really funny what I was doing with my money over there. But the funny story that happened is that the school organized for a recognition event for me for winning that competition, but I forgot about it and I did not show up for it. So that also made me realize, and I think the principal never gave me that award, saying that you will remember this, that you have to show up on time for more important events. And I think there are some lot of these memories that shaped me in some ways because it was not just winning, but also showing up for that final moment to collect your award or just be there for that. Uh, in terms of other things, I think few things were in my philosophy thing. I would still struggle to wake up on time. So 7 to 9 a.m. was a great idea, but I would never be able to wake up to be there. So I was never there really in the class. And there was a professor I used to really like, and I would stand outside the classroom and listen to his lecture for years because I would never show up on time. And he had a rule that he will not let you in if you are late, but he could not stop me from standing outside the classroom and listening to his lecture. So I would just listen to it. So there was this interesting craziness about curiousness, but not being having rigor. So it was a nice version. But I think the professor really liked me because I was truly interested in the subject versus have the ability to show up on time for 7 a.m. on the lecture no matter what, right? I think this professor did an interesting experiment. They said, I'll give you 2 marks extra in the exam if you guys find out what's the quote written about desire at the Marine Line station in Bombay on a bench somewhere. And if you do that, you get 2 marks in the exam. And the exam was 3 months away, right? But I had this insane curiosity. What the hell is this quote at Marine Line station? I went there immediately after the class, showed up half an hour back to him and told him what the quote was. And I got these marks, and nobody did that exercise for the next 3 months, and most people forgot about it. And I think very few times you get opportunities in life to do this, and people will tell you that if you do this in this much time for me, I'll accelerate you, and we all sleep and don't take that and seize that opportunity. Funny enough, the quote was, "The root of all suffering is desire." So it's an interesting lesson by itself. But I think there are quite a few of them. I think just people's faith. A few other pivotal moments was that I used to the only time I failed ever in any exam or any test was when I took tuition for 6 months, right? And that was because my mom was pregnant with my brother, and I had to take a tuition because my mom was there, not there to make me study. And that's the only time I failed. And that's when I realized that since fourth grade, I'll study on my own because I can't follow anybody else's schedule. And I think that stayed with me. I can't learn with anybody else's method. For example, book summaries don't work for me because if somebody else's interpretation of that book, it is not helping me connect my dots in my head. And therefore, I have to read it myself. I have to go through the experience myself. But I think a lot of interesting things. I've never really thought about this, about what shaped me. But you've got me thinking. I'm going to think more about this.
Yeah, you still have 45 minutes. So whenever that strikes, share. Because I think I think that I don't know about you, but I feel like a lot of my life is definitely shaped during those 5 years of student life, when the kind of friends I made, the kind of people I surrounded myself with, the level of ambition I had, was all kind of defined in some very nuanced, interesting ways, but they were defined by those circumstances. And I seen myself kind of reflect on it time and again, and I kind of realized that even though some of those people I'm not in touch with now, but they definitely had a large impression on my life. And so, as I was talking to a few students that have signed up for the internship program, uh, I constantly hear the word networking, and the word networking in their mind is, let me network with Kunal Shah, let me network with, famous people. But I feel like that is just a very, you get to know somebody for that moment, for that minute. But the people that you hang out with on a daily basis, the people that you surround yourself with, like they have in my opinion, building that network more, consciously is probably has a larger impact in life than just sort of these, obviously, talking to people that have lived an interesting life or have an interesting perspective adds value to you. But I think these other, like the circle of your friends, the circle of your family, your cousins, or people that have like different perspectives, you kind of surround yourself with them, and then I think uh, in very unknowing ways, they define who you are. Like you said, it actually goes back to the point you made, which is this early impression, right? When somebody else tells you that you are actually good at this, you may not have seen it yourself, but then you start believing that, oh yeah, I am probably good at this. Two people have told me this. Now I'm going to live up to it, right? And so who are these people and what are they nudging you towards? Like I think that defines a lot of the early ambition in a human being's life. And then there is a compounding value over that, right? You start at a certain place with a certain thought process, and then you if started right, you compound. If started wrong, you also compound negatively.
It can go wrong, like at the same time.
Yes.
Negatively is an interesting comment to make. For example, if your not so smart friend told you that you are actually good at this, that analytical skills are so poor that
Yes.
they have given you identity that you do not really have, and you try to live up to it, right? And this is the classic example I tell people, that people who think that they're good at math and algebra, they think they're naturally good at money, but they are completely different skill sets, right? And a lot of people just kind of tend to just apply this identities that, man, a school festival, may I raise some money, so I must be good at business. But you are not. You are mostly terrible at it. And I think one of the more important point is, what is networking? Networking to me is spending most amount of time with people who are better than you in any capacity, right? And that's why I keep questioning you, why the hell are you still in Bombay? Because the amount of people that you meet who are better than you is declining at a very fast rate, and that will impact you, because it will not challenge your brain to more possibilities, and you will not see more things. So I think most people do not consciously solve for it. Most people think that it's okay and it's comforting, but comfort zones are infertile, right? They do not create productive stuff, and we tend to think that, oh, I will solve for that by reading a book or watching a YouTube video or whatever, but that's not the same. Because there is no interaction that is happening between two people who are questioning you and challenging you, and making you fundamentally wonder if you are doing anything right or wrong. And I think this is the problem of vocabulary, right? Most people do not go to the nuances of vocabulary, right? Networking, what does it mean? Hanging out, compounding, like a lot of these things tend to become investing, right? Like buying some random crypto coins will not make you investors, but it gives you the feeling of being that, because somebody tells you that, hey, because it increased in price, you are a great investor. What if you don't understand anything about it, right? So I think a lot of times vocabulary has this unique curse. I think humans suffer every word they know, right? Every word we know, we will suffer that. In absence of that word knowledge, we don't know if that exists, and we may not suffer it. And I think a lot of younger generation has this unique curse of collecting words without truly knowing the meaning of it, right? The ability to think for yourself is just not there. And therefore there is this rise of all these motivational speakers who have not achieved much in their life because all they have to do is speak confidently, right? And I remember still telling people, hearing from, I remember in Free Charge, one of my team members, very senior team member, told me, Kunal, people do not follow people who are right or wrong. People follow people who appear to have a backbone, right? And that's true for even Marcela. It didn't matter if she's right or wrong. People just loved following somebody who seemed to know what they are talking about. And the world, unfortunately, because of social media, has such low processing power that we just quickly want to take one button advice and move. Everybody wants short notes कि यार थोड़ा xerox करके notes दे दो कि मैं exam pass कर दूंगा. But life cannot pass on somebody else's notes. You have to learn to understand life on your own if you are going to hope that you will. And therefore this massive need for, I want to get a mentor. This is the same curse that we had as tuition teacher चाहिए. Life का tuition teacher नहीं मिलेगा.
Yeah, but I'm going to hold this conversation towards the end, but I want to harp in a little bit more on networking because I honestly think that it's a very important topic to talk about because so much of student life is actually spent on building this network because of whatever general understanding that with networking is where you get a job, with networking is how you know whether you're surrounding yourself with smart people, so on and so forth. But we'll get to that. But this is actually a good segue into the next question I have for you, which is, you said there's no shortcut to learning from somebody else's notes, right? And you did a lot of gigs very early in your career, everything from, being a person who did data entry to like selling Mendi cones. A lot of people think Free Charge was actually your first startup. Actually, before that, you had Paisa Back. And then, so sort of, I want to walk me through sort of, what was the thought process of going from one to the other? And did one actually impact the other in interesting ways? Because they're very, very different choices. Like data entry is very different from selling a Mendi cone, is very different from doing Paisa Back to Free Charge to CRED. And in the middle, you did a bunch of gigs at, Sequoia, YC. Very, very like a wide pool of experiences. Like what were your thought process? How did you pick?
I think I would define them in two categories. One was whatever made me money, and second is whatever made me be around smarter people.
And so you decided to focus on money because you just had to?
I had to. I had no choice. Okay. And I think I learned human motivation naturally because, and that's true for every small businessman or anybody who needs to earn some money to survive, is that you need to understand human motivation. What will people pay you money for, right? For example, when I was doing the Mendi cone business, I figured out that people really want to stand out. And if I could create black Mendi cones, so I created a method through which if you apply Mendi, it's black in color, so you stand out in your wedding or in any function that you're going to. And I realized that people were willing to pay 5x, 6x for that Mendi cone to stand out. And the point I'm making over here is that to me, what will people pay for came from natural understanding of human motivation. And I think most students in India have this unique curse of never having to sell anything in their life. And therefore, they suck at understanding human motivation.
How do they learn this trick? How do they learn the trick of selling?
Learn to sell. Start a business in college and fail miserably if you have to, because you will become a better human being anyways. At least you will learn how to do a good interview, if nothing else, later on in life. I think most people in our society feel selling is a lower order work, right? It is assigned for dalals and brokers, and we think it's a lower class or lower quality thing, because associating of salesperson is like some LIC agent or whatever. We think of them as lower beings, right? and therefore we don't feel the need to learn to sell. But if you go back and if you study everybody's life, you realize that everything is sales. Every single thing is sales. Even Nikola Tesla had to do sales to make his electricity network kind of become a real thing, right? So the thing is that most people refrain from learning that early on in life, and therefore they suffer the curse of not understanding what human motivation means, and therefore they are terrible at any original idea, any original product, because we do not know what people want, right? And therefore it also has a terrible dating culture. We do not really know what the other person wants, right? And therefore still 95% of all marriages in India are arranged in nature, because we've never really figured out how to do this, right? So I think the bigger point being that are we really understanding what is important? Are we really understanding what is doing gigs? Or the power, anybody who has earned any amount of money in college, I can bet my life on it, is way more successful in their life than average cohorts of other college students, right? And I would love to fund a research which can prove this, right? That, or on the second one, I believe is also true, is that anybody who's lived away from their parents, right, in any manner, right, early in their life, these two cohorts will do disproportionately better financially compared to their peers, because they will learn the two most important skills. A is being independent. Two, understanding what will people pay for, right? And I think I like the fact that people are wanting to do internship and all of that. The thing is that what do they really? They don't know what should they be learning, what should they be doing, right? A lot of young people today's generation have a lot of entitlement, right? They do not want to work very hard and like give it their all. When I was young, like I would raise my hands for everything and literally not sleep to learn everything I could, just because I would raise my hands for doing work that some people wanted my help for, right? And how else do you expect to be successful when you do not have the exposure early on in life? And when I was thinking about this crazy thing today, that all these social media companies are spending so much research brain to make people spend more time on their apps, which is going to make people less productive, which is going to result in lower income, which will stop the revenue of the same company that is trying to advertise to these people. It's such a vicious cycle by itself that being productive is not appreciated. Look at all the guys and students who are attending this session. Look at the time you spend on Instagram or social media in general, and how much value it's adding to your life. It's entertaining, it is a lot of fun, it keeps it exciting, but exciting things are rarely something that can create value in life. Anything that is exciting rarely creates value, right? Exciting things are exciting to just keep you distracted, but things that create value are usually boring, slow, and need to be sustained.
I often talk about, many people ask me, who are Upraised competitors, and my first response is always Netflix and Instagram, because you have to take a student or a young professional out of that environment and say, after a long day of work, spend some time to actually upskill and make yourself better, right? That's a uphill battle, which means that I don't like what we teach them. Firstly, I hate the word content. Like, educational material is not content. Like, it's something that you learn and you get better at. But I think like that is the mind space that you're actually competing for. It's less about what other companies providing this educational material, because ultimately you need to get them out of that thought process and say, okay, no, I'm going to dedicate 20 minutes or 30 minutes of my day to actually learn something and keep upskilling, right? So you talked about how everybody should go sell, everybody should do something, try to earn money in college, right? And that is going to increase your probability of succeeding in life a lot more. That was like one core takeaway. I think that would be it. But how do people like one of the challenges, I think a lot of students actually understand that they should get some work experience. They should work at startups. They should do internships. They should do these things, but they don't know how to break into it. They are just, because the education system is so different from what is required in the real world, they feel that the gap between the two is so large and there's no bridge that they know they can just get on to get to the other side. They try all these things of, cold messaging on LinkedIn, like they'll try writing, go to these networking events or sessions where they think like, if a founder shows up, maybe I can get their email address, send them a resume, do all these things. Like how should people look for internships? Like what, if you had to give them like 3 tips, this is how you can get started, what would those be?
I wish I knew, Mona. I just feel that if what you do is noticed by a group of people, you will have opportunities given to you. And sometimes you have to start the performance on your own. Not wait for somebody to give you the stage to do performance. Just start performing. Do something in college. Do something on YouTube. Do something on helping people, being part of projects. Anything and everything. I think a lot of people judge what the role is and what am I supposed to do versus just showing up and doing things, right?
Get a foot in the door, do something.
Just do something. Like, do not. I mean, you are expecting somebody to give you the perfect microphone to sing the song. No, that's not going to happen. First, just start singing randomly, and somebody will probably notice you if you are any good. And then they will say, why don't you come sing at my house? And then eventually take you to a stage, right? The point is that start singing. If you are saying that, oh, I can't sing because I have never been given a stage and a microphone, then it's not going to happen, right? Do anything. Like, people are very keen to get help, offer them help. For example, a good technique that could be interesting is that, let's say, some founder is doing their own startup. Why don't you call 200 users of that startup and collect insights and give them in a deck to the founder for anything that they could use, right? And yes, it might fail. 99% of time, nobody will notice it and think that it's stupid. But you've learned something anyways. And what if that 1% of chance that they like it and they say, hey, I like it, why don't you do something else for me? And do it for free, do it more for free, and realize that what if you get good at it, right? And the thing is, you do not have to be given a task. You can self-assign a task and do it and put it in public domain. For example, what if you analyzed, let's say, fintechs of India and wrote a blog about it, which turns out to be good and people notice it. I still remember the first employee I hired in Freecharge was a guy who wrote a blog about mobile recharging. I reached out to that person, hired him as my first employee. No clue what that person did and what that education profile was. I just felt that guy thought very clearly about the category and had understood what's going on over here. And I just wrote that. And he just turned out to be the first employee. So why do you care about, like, if you are really good at something, just don't wait for somebody to give you the stage to perform.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that I think a lot of students actually have the intent of doing that, but I think where it kind of falls through is the confidence to publish it publicly, because they fear the sense of judgment that may come, both good and bad. One of the mission statements that I started Upraised with was, to help people realize their full potential, but give them in a learning environment which is completely non-judgmental, right? I'm not sharing what you're not good or what you're bad at with somebody else. Just come here and learn. Like, nobody's judging you for it. And at the end of the road, hopefully you'll get somewhere better.
I'll interrupt and tell you that there is nothing called as non-judgmental. It's an absolute bullshit. I'll tell you why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Humans are judging species. Okay, we are constantly judging patterns. Sometimes we say nasty things, sometimes we don't say nasty things, but we think nasty things. The bright solution is to not give a damn. One of the most common thing that you'll see in most successful founders is they're absolutely shameless. They don't give a damn about other people's judgment. So
That is true, but that is 99.99% of the population cannot live.
No, Mona, I disagree with that. Look at all the Gujaratis screaming at the airport and misbehaving. They are a shameless species compared to the rest of the Indians. It is possible because it's not natural for them to be thinking that I should be judged. It's just, they don't think it, right? Most people who play loud phones at airports, not realizing what people must be getting disturbed, this is a bad version of shameless behavior, but it's quite normal in this country. It's only the few evolved people who now start feeling embarrassed. For example, like I remember seeing a meme where you want to hide when your mom bargains with a shopkeeper. We are always shameless. This is a new generation that feels a little bit of shame. What I'm saying is that shamelessness is the biggest power. Why do you care? No matter how successful you are, you should follow my Twitter. Every day I have 100 people who hate me. It's not going to stop. If in fact, it's going to only happen if you try to break out. Think of this as this nice framework where if you try to do something different, right? Let's say you're in college and let's say you start dating somebody who is way more attractive than you are, all your friends will hate you. Should you stop dating this person because of that? So the question is that judgments will exist. They have to exist. You have to learn to play the game no matter how and be absolutely shameless about winning and be okay with judgments and be okay with judgments for a long period of time where people will consistently misunderstand you, and it's okay. That's their job. That's their job to assign a label to you so that they can live peacefully. But you don't need to live those labels. You can say, that's interesting label. Thank you so much for it. But I have something else to do in life. Why do you have to take somebody's label and make it a necklace in your neck? You don't need to do that.
Yeah, I think my use of the word non-judgmental is that people constantly live under performance anxiety. Like, my professor is watching me, he's going to score me. My boss is watching me, he might fire me. My peer is watching me, I'm not doing my work, he's going to complain to HR, like all these random things, right? And the idea is that this is an environment where nobody is scoring you to the extent of if you fail, those failures are not made, like we're not penalizing you in the to the extent of saying, okay, this is something that has gone wrong, fix it. But the repercussion is the closed group in which you can have the comfort of learning, rather than it just being constantly a public stage where you have constant performance anxiety, and so you just don't end up learning, right?
Yeah,
makes sense. Everybody, all students have heard this and they hear it again and again and again, which is, you should pursue your passion, you should do what you're good at, like focus on bridging your weaknesses, so on and so forth. I will say, me including 99%, 99.99% of the people don't even know what they're good at or what they want specifically. Like, where do they start? Like, what do they do?
I think it's the stupidest advice to tell people to pursue their passions. And especially to people who have never seen anything in life. And therefore, everybody wants to be influencer. Everybody wants to do something that 4 or 5 things that they've heard. Everybody wants to do that, right? There's a good framework of Ikigai, which talks about what are you good at, what do you love, and what will make money. It's a good framework that I think people should follow. But following your passion is the stupidest advice that I think people are given, right? Because most people's passions are stupid. I'll give you a classic example. Everybody you will meet, like, I want to open up a restaurant. They think it's such a cool, sexy thing to do and not realize it's the worst business to get into if you do not really know how to work hard. And every day you have to make dish perfectly. It's not that you can make one dish like an app and it continues to be there and millions of people can use it. Every day you have to make the dish perfectly, every single time, right? And one time you don't get it right, they'll be like, "Arey yaar, ye restaurant mein abhi maza nahi bacha," right? But everybody thinks, oh, I want to follow my passion. I love cooking. So I should make a restaurant. Stupid idea. right? And I think, and this is a sign of a very emotional society. You need to know what your hobbies are and passions are, and you can live that. But what makes money is different, right? You can choose to live your life very, very differently about these things. What if you love reading books? So I'll say, oh, I'll make a library. But do you know that most people in India don't read books, have no interest in books? So why would you create a book library because you love reading books, right? And I think that's what most people's business ideas amount to. And I love it. And I think my four friend who will never tell me honestly what my idea is bullshit, I listen to them and I think it's a good idea, right? India's biggest curse is that we sugarcoat in front of people and ridicule them once they've left the room. We tell them, "Arey, itna stupid idea. I can't believe that they're doing this stupid idea," right? And that's because we do not tell them honestly, this is really a stupid idea. And I have noticed, Mona, that in India, we have the highest amount of offense taken when I tell them this is a stupid idea. Because nobody's told them that before, right? They're just shocked that how can Kunal tell me it's stupid, right? And then only few times I've seen people do the same startup idea after 3 years and then come back and tell me, Kunal, you were right. But that's such a late way of realizing and a horrible way of realizing that it was a stupid idea. So I think following passion, other curse is following other people's ideas. Suddenly, I remember there was a time where like at least 20 startups with IITians in it were doing laundry startup because somehow 3 companies got funded in the US for doing laundry. Arey boss, India mein nahi chahiye laundry startup, right? We all have assistants at home to do our laundry. We don't need laundry startups. This is not New York City, right? So I think that's another curse I've seen is that, oh, this seems to work in the Western world. I'm going to make this work over here. Mona, think about this one interesting thing. Like how many original ideas in India in startup world, right? But if you notice a pattern now, many of them are actually original ideas. Like think about Khata Book or Urban Company or Paytm or all of these are actually interesting original ideas that only make sense in India.
Correct.
Right? I still remember when I did free charge, nobody used to do mobile recharge, which was the highest selling transaction of the country, and everybody was trying to sell refrigerators online. And I'm like, but boss, what most people need is recharge. 99% of the country was prepaid, and they used to recharge every week, and there were no decent platforms online to recharge your mobile phones online. So the thing is, what does the world want? What will they pay money for? Just knowing that is super important.
Yeah, if you, I guess, if you don't know what you're passionate about, my fundamental belief is you should use student life to explore. You should just there is literally nothing anybody is going to hold you for making mistakes during your student life. It feels like, oh my god, it's a ride or die moment for you, but actually 5 years later you might reflect back and you may not even remember some of these things, and nor will anybody else. So I think like student life should be about explore, go do many different gigs, do work with interesting people,
travel alone.
Yeah.
I think most, Mona, I did a survey on Instagram once and asked that, have you ever traveled alone? And like literally like 15-16% people said yes. I'm sure at India level that probably is 2%.
Yeah.
How will you know yourself if you have never been alone? How will you get to meet yourself?
Yeah, I mean, there are many such patterns. You've never, few people have, I mean, for example, a lot of the students that come to us, when you look at their resumes and you look at 20 other resumes, right? They all come from the same college. They all have the same degree. They all have similar GPAs. There's no way to know how Kunal is better than Mona, right?
Mona, they also copy each other's resume. So that's even worse.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's just like, I feel like, the only way to kind of stand out, which a lot of people ask questions about every event I go to, that is the most popular question. How do I stand out? I'm just like, it is so easy. Just do anything. It can be literally anything. It can be something as simple as I just started a YouTube channel and 10 people used to come and I used to talk about teaching math, or it could be something as simple as, I did, image curation for some urban company, like whatever, right? It can be anything, but just do something. So at least I have something more to read about you versus somebody else, because there's no way for me to know how Kunal and Mona are different. They all come from the same background, the same college, and there's not 110 of you. There is 100 of you, right? How do I even know?
But Mona, I think it's a trait of a collectivist society versus an individualistic society, right? Peacocking is discouraged in a collectivist society. You are likely to do okay if you are like everybody else and do everything what everybody else does. But unfortunately, the world does not reward you for being same. The world rewards you for being different and excellent in that difference that you bring to the table.
Yeah, and so, one thing when we started Embark, the internship program, I told the team, like, I don't care, everybody that gives the first round test, I want to make sure they get a detailed understanding of who they are. There is no preparation material required. You don't have to go to classes. There is no content. You just come here and there is a bunch of situational things. You're going to look through them and you're going to react to them. And through that, we're going to try to understand what they have higher propensity towards, and just give this really detailed skill report to them for free. I don't want to charge anybody. Just take it. Use it as your GPS to just kind of navigate your career. Don't do anything else. Like, just do that. At least have some starting point. Don't just like start fluttering and just like graduate 3 years later and then apply to the same companies, do the same things, and you're stuck in the same rut. And then what ends up happening is 2 years go out, then MBA kar lo. पीछे के पूरे पाप धो लो आप, right? Nobody will ask me anything in my previous life because I have an MBA now. But dude, that is also only available to a privileged few because you don't have access. Firstly, the opportunity cost is so large because you're getting out of the workforce for 2 years. Secondly, you're spending all this money to get an MBA. And after an MBA also, again, you're still lost because you don't know what to do. So what can we do, right? And so I just feel that if there's one thing I want people to understand, like, just use student life to explore, just do whatever. Nobody's going to judge you for anything. Like, just be on the loose, do whatever you feel like, work with smart people. Like you said, just show up, just follow through and do things that, just raise your hand for all types of things. You may never know what you like until you actually experience it. And if you experience it, then hopefully you make a more informed full-time career choice, which will save you the 5 years of just experimenting when you actually have the appetite to take risk. Before you settle down, you have other constraints. And hopefully that will help you realize your full potential,
Yeah.
So we actually have a few questions from the audience. We're going to kind of just quickly jump to those. And this is also one question I had. Like, how did you develop confidence to become an entrepreneur so early in your life? So a similar question along the same line, somebody asked how to develop confidence to explore different things and make good decisions when one is at the middle of his career building. How do you balance exploring and going in one direction?
I think confidence building needs you to have a simple analytical framework to say that what is the worst case scenario. Most people who will try to do entrepreneurship early in their life, I think will turn out to be great employees irrespective compared to other people. Because they will have to learn 200 skills in a short period of time and they will mostly suck at it and they'll fail at it, but they'll get to know themselves. I think if you convert the question into how do we develop curiosity to what it means to be an entrepreneur versus the confidence to be an entrepreneur, because your question is rooted in your fear of failure. What if you convert your fear of failure into your need of curiosity? ये करके देखते हैं. What if jumping from a plane and skydiving was a pursuit in curiosity versus a pursuit in confidence?
Sure.
And automatically, when you frame that in that manner, everything seems like ये तो करना चाहिए. इसमें क्या होगा देखते हैं. What happens? Let me see what happens. Right? And I think the reason we have fear of failure because we judge our own life constantly from the eyes of others. This is the biggest curse we have in India. Our life is lived through other people's eyes, right? a lot of people cannot take a joke on themselves because they're constantly living a life from the other people's perspective, right? Uh, the moment you start truly realizing that nobody really gives a damn about you, only you should be, you will realize that that's ultimate freedom. And even if they mock, even if they ridicule, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. And I think most people are trying to fit into the tribe. पहले IIT tribe, फिर family tribe, फिर WhatsApp group. Look at our behavior on WhatsApp groups. Families are doing absolute bullshit on it, right? Share all sorts of nonsense information, but we'll keep quiet. कि यार पंगा नहीं लेना है with this uncle who's sharing some nonsense because I might be thrown out of the group. What if you did not care to be inside that group? Do you have that guts to call out the truth and say things? Most people will keep quiet and just be in the group and do back channel in chat that yeah, uncle pagal ho gaya.
True that. Going back to the question about networking, because I think it's an interesting kind of concept that I want to break down for people, because they actually spend loads of time doing that, or at least obsessing about that. So the question from the audience is, where should one start when they approach networking with people smarter than themselves? How should one find the right people to keep engaging with?
Start small. First, hang around with people who seem to be in your vicinity who are smarter than you, and they are likely to be hanging around with people smarter than them. Use them as a mechanism to reach out to more people, and be useful to them. Don't annoy them. People who are better than you, they do not want to be annoyed. A lot of people think that writing a cool email to Kunal Shah will get them interested. No, there is that. I have 500 emails. I can't keep up, right? So find your way to get there instead of trying to say, let me take a shot and write to anybody and they will respond. No, it doesn't work. Build gradual networks, right? Anybody who tries to hack reputation will fail, right? So build your reputation slowly, networks by networks, right? Be the best in your college, and then the best in the college will be around best in their workplace, and then they will call you to their job. Like a lot of people who have, let's say, came from early batch of PMs at CRED were from Bits Pilani, and they're like, oh, this is the best place to work, and these are the two best people from my college I want to bring inside the company. And that's how the gentrification changed, and it keeps pulling people that way, right? Majority of people who have joined CRED are people who know each other, versus going out in the market and looking at LinkedIn. Applying to jobs is not going to get there, right? Most people want to say, dude, this guy is really good at this guy is really good at that, and that content will only exist if there is substance in you. Marketing will not do it. Resumes will not do it. Most people think that most people are hired through resumes, and that's complete nonsense. Most people are hired through networks and capabilities. Resumes are only done to do an interview, not to pick people.
Right. And I think the one nuance I want to say is, which you said, which is most people are hired through networks, but these are hired through networks that know you well, not acquaintances. Like, don't think that you just sent an invite on somebody to LinkedIn and they accepted means that they are part of your network and they're actually going to vouch for you or refer you inside their companies. Unless, of course, you do something stellar and then they end up, referring you. But I think the word networking should, like you said, it's start small, know who you are, engage with people think of your network only as somebody you actually engage on a more frequent basis, not as acquaintances. I think this is the biggest fallacy of like networking. They think going to events and just hearing somebody and then just exchanging, visiting cards or just email or Twitter or whatever is not your network. Your network is people you learn from, or people you talk to, or people you engage with on a more frequent basis. And I like what you said, which is, if you start small, the people you network with likely are also networking with other people, and that's how you kind of just keep going one degree out, and build more
And
confidence.
if they like you, they'll invite you for one party, one social event, one Diwali party where you'll be like, oh, I've unlocked a new level in life.
Correct. Awesome. Another question. How do you let go of fear and just take the first step towards a startup or making an idea into executing? Like, what is that first step? Like, what did you have fear first of all?
I think people need to understand that everybody has fear. You think Elon Musk does not have fear of failing? Absolutely. The guy lives in fear all the time.
Yes.
Fear is permanent when you're trying to do new things. So accept it.
Yeah.
And if you need other people to tell you कि वो jump करो तो आप मत jump करो, आपके लिए नहीं है ये. So play the safe game. Most people are anyways playing the safe game. If it scares you so much, and imagine in early life if you fail also, वैसे भी तुम zero ही थे, तो क्या ही हो गया, right? The fear of failure should be compounding as you become more successful, right? Imagine somebody who's working in HDFC Bank, senior guy, them joining a fintech feels scary, although they know that it's a good thing to probably be part of a fintech and a tech company. But you guys are college students. Why do you care?
Yeah, and that's what I said. Nobody, you are making a big deal out of it. You think that your failure is the data point you have is one of one, but what the world is looking for is not. It's a very small blip in your long career. Like, nobody's gonna know this is the best time to fail. Like, nobody's gonna judge you for it, right? Because they assume you started with nothing, so they assume that they learned something more. It's only positive. I don't think there's anything negative.
And I'll tell you one more thing. There's a very problematic thing in India is self-sympathizing.
Correct.
The amount of sad songs we have compared to any other country is immense. We love to feel like victims. I think there are more victim cards in India than other cards in India, right? The need to self-loathe and feel I have failed and people betrayed me and crying to get attention. It's such a disturbingly addictive behavior, right? That people need to get rid of it, right? Like, oh, my girlfriend left me. Arey, boss, move on. Oh, my startup failed. Move on. Oh, I failed in the subject. Move on. Right? I think the need to find attention through failures is a big problem I have seen. Right? And then the same group of people will start hating anybody who's successful in any manner because they have not succeeded in life, because they love to find their place of confidence to saying that Are, ye sab bakwas hai, right? And you will see like no matter what you do, if you're a funded startup, people will troll you. If you are doing well as a businessman, people will troll you. If you are a bootstrap company, people will troll you. Why do you have the time to troll somebody? This whole concept of minding your business requires you to have your business first. तब तो mind कर पाओगे.
Actually, somebody asked a similar question, which is, if you're constantly feeling like you're failing and you've actually failed in your exams, you've done all these things. Like, how do you start? Like, how do you restart? Because you're failing at multiple places. Like, where do you focus? There's a sense of low self-confidence at some point. How do you break out of that and get back on the rut?
Just write down what were the lessons of the last one. Ask somebody else to validate if the lessons seem to be right, and then move on. Write a document of lessons of your failure. Most people do not write down the lessons of their mistakes. And by the way, they should also get it checked from somebody else because their analysis may be terrible of what their mistakes were, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you failed at something. For example, what we do at CRED now is, let's say a candidate we interviewed and hired did not work out. We go back to our retro notes of interview and see what did we see, what did we not miss. For example, when we say, for example, we recently had a PM that I rated low, but we hired and it turned out to be good. I did full retro on what were my biases to reject this person and this person still succeeding. What the hell am I missing? Right? Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you over here is that start documenting your decisions as if it's a journal and start writing down that whenever the answer is yes, what were the lessons? When the answer was fail, what were the lessons? And then don't repeat those mistakes. Make this as a pursuit of writing down mistakes that not to be repeated.
Yeah. At Upraised, we call them postmortems. Like everything, you just write a postmortem and you kind of learn from it and move on. And hopefully when you actually reflect back on it, you realize the delta of what has happened from you at that point learning to now you reacting to that same situation differently. So that's a great idea. Uh, what do this is also one of the most commonly asked questions. What do you look for interns while you're hiring interns at CRED or even full-time people? What are the most important things if they wanted a job at CRED?
I don't know answer, Mona. I just think that uh, uh, I just wish I knew the answer. I just look for people who seem to be wired to break out, and I don't know how to explain this to you.
What is the process you follow to figure that out?
I haven't figured it out. I should think about it. I don't know the answer. It's a good question to ask. I have a simple framework. I look for somebody I trust recommend that Kunal, this one guy, just get this guy. And that's usually a good enough signal for me. That's how I angel invest also. I don't angel invest on what people write to me on inbox. I angel invest on somebody says, Kunal, this one startup, just do this. These guys are good. And I don't even know what they're doing. I just invest. Same thing. Unfortunately, I have to go. I have another meeting that I have to rush to.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. Yes, thanks. Thank you, Kunal. Thanks for being here. Bye. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, you guys found some value out of this. And like I said, the most important thing for internship, if you're looking to get an internship, come join us. Take the test tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. You can actually start at 10:20. You can start getting your environment set up for Embark. You just have to log in on your dashboard. There'll be a button where you can start the process of getting your environment set up, and the test will begin at 10:30. Don't miss it. The most important thing you're going to get from this is, irrespective of whether you moved around to or you don't, you're going to get a skill report that is going to tell you exactly what you're good at, what you're not, and you know where to go from here. Like Kunal said, the most important thing is just explore. And the best way to explore is to know what areas you should explore in. That's what you're going to get from the skill report. So please come join us, take the test. You don't need to prepare anything. Just have a desktop, laptop, a bottle of water. You can bring your calculator. Just show up there and answer some questions. That's all we have to do. And I guarantee you those 2.5 hours will be very, very, very well spent. You'll get to know something more about yourself. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us.